Hey there, interwebs. I hope you are doing as well as you possibly can be. For today's video, I want to talk about the, as of this recording, most recent Jon Stewart hosted The Daily Sho episode, where he discussed the topic of whether or not Donald Trump is already fascist, and addressing the accusations by many people that he is a fascist. And the reason I want to discuss his response to that topic is not to go after Jon Stewart himself specifically, though I will do that to a degree in this, but to generally talk more about how capital L liberals, like establishment Democrats and those more steeped in the establishment of our American system, are completely ineffective against fascism because they do not recognize what fascism is. And Jon Stewart's monologue is a perfect example of their way of thinking and why, ultimately, in the day, they are going to be very ineffective on pushing back against fascism, why they have continued to be very ineffective against fighting back against fascism. And that is because they do not recognize that it is an extension of our current system. It is our system trying to enforce the status quo violently based on all the ingrained norms of a capitalist culture, a white supremacist culture, and using the institutions that were also built on those things to enforce it as violently as they possibly can, while stripping away any of the guardrails that kept them in any checks on their power and desire to push down their view of the world, their reality, their white supremacist view upon others. Jon Stewart kind of is just a good example of this. In his monologue, his argument basically boils down to this. Donald Trump is not a fascist because he is currently working within the levers of our democratic system.
Of encroaching fascism will erode the credibility we will need if, hopefully if, and not when, it hits. But the truth is that for now, his most objectionable actions have taken place almost entirely within our designed democratic system. Like the confirmation process. Despite claims of meritocracy, Trump has put forth some of the least LinkedIn people you could imagine. I don't know what responsible hiring process you can create that looks at this.
I'm going to get another refill. Hold on.
I feel good. You know, I'm just adding a little bit of extra.
And how did this individual, who has never so much as successfully managed a Waffle House pop-up, gonna run the 3 million people Department of Defense? But he wasn't foisted upon us by a dictator. There was no authoritarian end run, no royal edicts. This shit happened to us as designed, advised, but mostly consent. Passed through the Armed Services Committee, put through a Senate vote. 3 Republicans, of course, made a show of, this is the most outrageous, I cannot in good conscience, because they knew they could lose 3. It was a f***ing performance. And J.D. Vance broke the tie democratically. Trump's using the almost absolute power we have constitutionally granted him and the Republicans.
So that's essentially his argument. And he points to things like how Donald Trump had a peaceful handoff of power, which is just something that Democrats love to champion as like, oh, this is the pinnacle of our society, that we can still hand off power to people that we call fascists, that we graciouswe shake their hand and go to their inauguration, even if we do believe that they're the next coming of Hitler. That they're like, yeah, we may be Hitler, but we're cool and chill with it. Well, at least we can give Hitler the keys peacefully. That is just misunderstanding, again, what fascism is. If you look at historical examples of fascism, Hitler won the vote. The Nazi Party actually won the vote, got into power. Same thing with Mussolini, who had a different version of fascism, but was still fascism. They got elected. They got picked by the people. Now, there are reasons for that. They just won a plurality of seats and were able to sort of take power from there based on the split vote that was going on. And from there, they were able to control the levers of power, go forward and consolidate power more and more and more, and push their fascist agenda, and then change the laws from within that structure to enable what they wanted to do, specifically things like targeting Jewish people. Like, one of the first things that they did, for example, was force Jewish people to have to get marks on their passports to mark that they were Jewish, and also to change their names to add things like Israel or Sarah on their names to mark that they were Jewish, if they didn't have a Jewish enough sounding name, to sort of point out and mark the people that they were scapegoating. Flash forward to something like today, the Trump administration is doing very similar things. They got elected. The first time he got elected, didn't even win the popular vote. Here he did. But got elected legally and is now using the auspice system to tear apart everything he doesn't like and to force his agenda on targeting and pointing out the scapegoats that he has sold to his base that he is going to attack to get them to be distracted from the things he actually wants to do that is going to harm all of us. All of his bullshit that is going to hurt each and every American person and people around the world are going to be harmed by his agenda. But he is willing to target out his scapegoats, which in this case is trans people like me, in order to pass that agenda. And it's all done perfectly legally. You are seeing today a lot of the things, like there's been a lot of targeting of trans people in the last few days, but one of the more interesting in terms of this topic to me has been the targeting of passports and people changing their gender marker on their passports. Eerie echoes of things that happened with Jewish people. It's not the exact same because they are taking passports. And if you hear some of the things, there's been passports have been held that where people were changing gender markers on the passports. They're being held. If people were trying to renew them or to change their gender markers, they are not being given back. So now trans people are essentially stuck in the country. Trans people trying to get back into the country, and if they don't look suitably their gender or whatever their marker is and everything doesn't align, are finding it harder to get back into the country from which they are citizens. And so it is trying to both keep us within the country, to limit our movements, our ability to go anywhere, and to also keep us out from getting back into the country if we do go out of the country. And it is a method of control, and it is a first sign of darker things to come, like the signs of what they were doing to Jewish people were darker signs of darker things to come for Jewish people. All of this is fascist. It is fascist, and yet it is legal. And yet people like Jon Stewart and many other liberals are utterly shocked. They stand by this idea, our system is good and perfect, and so if it is legal, then it is not fascist. They expect fascism to be this cartoon of people going out in the streets and just shooting people and killing them right in the front of everybody so that they can all collectively gasp and say, oh, that's fascist. We can stop that. We can push back against. They're waiting for that moment. But that's not what the actual Rubicon of fascism is going to be. It progresses to that point, to the point where then it becomes when fascists go out in the streets and shoot somebody, it is perfectly legal and everyone wants it because the people speaking out against how these people are fascist, how these people are using the system to gain their power, have been speaking out, have been vilified so much. I have already been seeing it over and over and over again. I've seen it within my fiance's own family, within people around me and people who are supposed to stand up for us, but they pointed out oh, well, it's just passports. What does it matter? This will pass in 4 years anyways. It's not a big deal. You're getting overly ridiculous. Just accept a different gender marker on your passport. I don't see it as a thing of control. I just see it as you can just get a different gender marker. At the end of the day, it doesn't define you. And your constant screams of fascist make you the ridiculous one. You're the wrong one. You're the one disrupting civility. Why can't you just leave me alone and just let me go about my day? Why do you have to constantly scream fascist, fascist, fascist all the day? It really annoys me and bothers me. You're the one that's causing the problem, trans person. And yeah, let me tell you, trans people, while we certainly are harmed by the system, we're generally adept at figuring out how to navigate shitty systems to us because that's what we've had to live with for forever. Doesn't mean that we're not going to be harmed by this, but we are aware that systems do not define who we are. But we are aware of how these systems affect us, control us, limit us, and enable and limit our movements and our autonomy over our bodies, as do many other minority groups, be they black people, women, any confluence of any of those things. These liberals sort of say, oh, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to stand by you because I see this all as perfectly fine. And yeah, it's not great, but you'll be fine. This is all legal. It's not, we have systems and levers in place to prevent you from being harmed, when they don't see the slow eroding of fascism that is eating away at these things. Fascism quite literally is, if you look at a lot of the examples, it is a system that is meant to weaponize the systems of power built on nationalist movements that rely on the ingrained assumptions of the biases of the cultures they come from. Most notably white supremacy, mixed with whatever nationality it is. For the Germans, it was, Germany, or more specifically, less Germany and more like this, idealized past of the Aryan race that they wanted to return back to. Same thing with Italians and, Italian nationalism. And now today it's America and American nationalism. And this venerating of Aryan shit, Roman shit, whatever, some imagined past that they're trying to idealize to go back to and that we need to reclaim and get rid of all the degradation to society like trans people and the woke and DEI and black people that are degrading this idealized past that we want to return to. And they use, and all that idealized past idea is based on ingrained assumptions in our society. In America today, it is white supremacy. And in many other countries, it's white supremacy too, mixed with the nationalism. And that's just embedded in our society from day one. The slave owners who made the Constitution are on day one ingrained that black people were less than in the Constitution. White supremacy is a part of this nation from its core, and so much of its systems, its institutions are built up to enable that. And while we have tried over the years to put buttresses on it, to fix it up, to enable better people, we have seen repeatedly over and over and over again how the levers of power continually try to push people of color down, and by virtue of that, anything that sort of offshoots and upholds that white supremacist system. The white supremacist version of womanhood enables this as well. Like, white women need to be protected by the people of color from black people, and need to keep pumping up babies, more white people, make more babies, and be at home so we can control you women. And trans people and queerness are offshoots of that as well, saying that men have to be one way, women have to be one way, and if you are different than that, then we're going to push you back into your boxes. If you're trans or non-binary, whatever. If you're not heterosexual, we'll attack you because we need to consistently reinforce heterosexuality. That's what fascism is. It is a violent reinforcing. Let me be even clearer, like an extreme violent reinforcing of these norms, because in many ways, these institutions have always been violent in different ways. Fascism is just the most extreme version of it, and it comes from within the system. And so you look at someone like Jon Stewart, who is unwilling to look at that fact and says, hey, we need to see a cartoonish version of fascism to be able to understand that it is harmful. And I look at that and I go, okay, don't really expect you to stand by me. And frankly, I didn't really expect Jon Stewart either. I mean, there's I'm going to shout him out. Skip Intro just recently did a wonderful video on Jon Stewart specifically, and how this has been an issue with him for many years. Generally, he did two video series of both the current Daily Show and his previous show on Apple TV Plus. And like, this is not new for Jon Stewart, and you know, this his recent fashion videos is the one that people I think are noticing the most for how ahistorical it is, and how much it is just clinging on to the sense of civility and normalcy, and normalizing fascism, and how unwilling he is to look at it. But it's a recurring ethos underneath a lot of his work, and it's an recurring ethos on so many Democrats and other people. It's why I look at Democrats that are just being like, well, maybe we should stop defending trans people. It's like, I'm not shocked. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what they have to do, hold on to their sense of normalcy. They want to be diet Republicans more than they want to be dyed-in-the-wool, like, ardent allies of trans people. Because what it would really mean to stand by trans people, what it would really mean to stand by us, is to recognize that this system oppresses not only just us, but so many people. And understanding that would mean you have to reckon with the fact that, like, yeah, we need to completely change what we've been doing for centuries. And that scares people. It scares everybody who clings to some, and I think all humans want to have a sense of like safety, and it scares people at any level who want to cling to that, but it especially scares people who are comfortable already, especially those in the seats of power. It scares anybody who's afraid to lose what they already have, but it especially causes fear in those who have a lot to lose in this system. And the more you have to lose, the more you're willing to uphold it and push everyone down, even if it means, you know, not recognizing the fascism that you are enabling in the process, because ultimately at the end of the day, it helps you. Like, I want to be clear too, like, Jon Stewart is in a weird place because he is also Jewish, and there is anti-Semitism underlining a lot of this. It's not as overt as shit like the Nazis were, but it's still there. I mean, a lot of the gender ideology bullshit has anti-Semitic roots or anti-Semitic connections in it. It's like, ooh, the powerful are trying to fund culture and society to try to make people trans and try to gain money from them by forcing trans people into surgeries that the medical establishment is gaining money on. I wonder who they point to with who's gaining that money. It's Jewish people. So like, I don't want to say that Jon Stewart's perfectly safe in this environment, but certainly as someone with money, as notoriety, with a platform that is visible, he is certainly inculcated from a lot of it. You know, it's a joke at this point, but like, there's that poem, first they came for blank, and I didn't do anything because I was not blank, and just changed the nature of that poem, you know? First they came for trans people, and I didn't stand up because I was not trans. Then they came for the woke DEI leftists, and I didn't stand by them because I was the woke DEI leftists. And then they came for, you know, people of color, Jewish people. It's how it goes. It's all legal. Anyways, that's what I sadly, depressingly wanted to talk about. Again, this wasn't an attack on Jon Stewart specifically, but certainly he is a perfect example of this problem. I hope you all, my friends, fight back, keep resisting, and live long and prosper.